and I specifically work with high sensation seeking, high sensory leaders to align with their truth. So in this video, I'm going to be touching on why I am so passionate about working with these people and holding this space for them. And I want to talk about how I work with these people, and also to start an entirely new conversation around this topic and for these people. But first of all, I'm going to talk about the traits themselves. What is the high sensory trait? So, otherwise known as high sensitivity or HSP. People with these traits they pick up significantly more sensory information than somebody who doesn't have this trait. And it's all about our sensitive nervous system, our very refined nervous system. And we're picking up everything from micro expressions to body language to tone of voice, energy. We're extremely intuitive and we're very, very empathic. So we're kind of like sponges. And because we're, and also bright, we can therefore, because we're taking up so much more information, we can get overstimulated way sooner than somebody who isn't highly sensitive. We have very, very rich, complex inner lives. We are deeply moved. We feel things so deeply. We're deeply moved by music, by the arts, by the refined things in life. But it doesn't make us wallflowers at all. We're some of the most determined people on the planet, and we're very, very purpose driven. And the more I research the high sensory intelligence trait, the more I fall in love with it. So what is the high sensation seeking trait? Well, somebody who has the high sensation seeking trait, and I won't talk about the high sensation seeking trait specifically without the high sensory trait, because I'm not talking about people who just have the high sensation seeking trait, who like to throw themselves off buildings but who don't have the high sensory intelligence trait. I'm talking about the confluence of the two. So, but within that, I'm also going to be talking about the high sensation seeking trait as I possibly can in its own right. People with this trait, they tend to be pretty intense. People have said it about myself. I'm pretty intense. Intense is our middle name, and we're ferociously driven. It's in our bones, right? There's kind of a curiosity and a ferociousness about us. It's like everything's kind of turned up and turned on. So whereas perhaps somebody with the high sensory trait, they're curious and they are interested and turned on by the truth. People with the high sensation seeking trait is ramped up. So it's kind of this like, I'm on, right? I'm on and I'm looking and I'm curious and I'm ferocious and it's in my bones and I cannot stop it. We tend to have these kind of big mood swings, so kind of very, very high highs and then very, very low lows, and it can be pretty exhausting actually. And you think about the high sensory trait, we're absorbing so much more information than somebody who isn't, and we get overstimulated more quickly. But people who with the high sensation seeking trait, we're actively going out and seeking more sensation, so we're even more overstimulated. And so these mood swings are and this is all before you start working with them, right? We're really turned on and drawn to complex and intense and unusual experiences, and we tend to underestimate the risk. Yeah, and people find it's quite difficult to predict in terms of, we have kind of very kind of contradictory hobbies. Like we might like, I don't know, needlework, but we like going out raving, or yeah, we're hard to put in a box. We can't stand boredom. We cannot stand boredom. Boredom is our worst enemy. And yes, but this ferocious truth seeking is so apparent, and we're kind of born leaders. We are absolute born leaders. So that's as separate as I can possibly make them, but combined. So people who have both these traits, and these are the people I work with, there tends to be this feeling, this kind of knowing, and this is from the research that I've done with 33, I've interviewed 33 people with both these traits, and they tend to feel like they have a hint of bipolar. Like there's this feeling of, there's two very, very opposing systems inside of me. One, it feels like I want to go and I want to do and I want to explore and I want to take risks. And the other one is very much kind of like, I'm just going to sit and consider this, and I'm going to take it all in, and then I'm going to act, right? So this is the HSS is the behavioural activation system, and the high sensory trait is the behavioural inhibition system, so it's the kind of pause and check. But nevertheless, it feels like that there are two. It can feel like a bit of like an internal war going on, and it's very, very apparent when you're out wanting to do and be with lots and lots of people and do really hardcore things, because it's a thrill and you want to take risks, but then you're exposing yourself, and you're kind of, your skin's getting thinner and thinner because you're exposing yourself to more and more people, and then you have to retreat. But then the retreating, if you take too long retreating, your spark goes out. So it's kind of like this vicious cycle. Unless you know how to work with these traits, it's kind of, you can tend to get into this vicious cycle. Yeah, but it makes us amazing healers, because we love complexity and we love taking risk, and it's especially when we're a bit older. We love working through our edges and diving deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. You see, because of the risk taking of the high sensation seeking and the depth and the complexity of the inner landscape with the high sensory, what happens is this amazing, beautiful combination where we're able to take risks and at such depth, and we are relentless. We are absolutely relentless in pursuing our healing. And you're probably one of the bravest people you know. You take huge risks, but you have such heart. And I have both of these traits in abundance, and I think it's not just the fact that I've got these traits, it's the fact that I fall in love with people who have these traits, because they are heart-centered, heart-driven, risk-taking, pioneering, rebellious leaders. I mean, what's not to love about that? And actually, just a point. One does not dilute the other, right? You can have both in absolute abundance, and this is what I have, and I know the beauties of it, and I also know how torturous it can be if you don't work with these traits, right? So So what have people been saying about these traits up until now? Well, yeah, people have been saying that actually we're kind of tortured souls, and somehow we need to somehow just manage these traits as best we can to create some kind of illusionary balance. And Elaine Aron talked about this marriage, which I came across also in my research. Like one seems to amplify the other, and that's the best we've got so far in terms of seeing the qualities of these traits. But people do also mention that there's a grieving process, grieving what you can't do and you can't have, in terms of limits. You can only go out for so long and then you have to retreat. Whereas I want to start an entirely new conversation, because when you work with these traits at the shadow level and also at an embodiment level, it becomes less about these two individual traits, and it becomes more about a merging and an amplifying. And it becomes less about these two traits and more about a process and a journey into consciousness. And I believe we have the golden tickets to living a fully self-actualized life, because we have the determination, we have the ferociousness, we have the forensicness, we have the depth, and we have the risk-taking. And this is everything you need to be a leader with heart. These two traits are it's the foundation of our existence, right? So you look at an organism without a nervous system, like it's just a blob, right? And it instinctively knows when it's seeking something and when it's moving away from something, right? So it's at the very, very essence of our existence. And Elaine Aron talks about the fact that people with the high sensory traits, we were seen when we were in tribes, we were seen as leaders, people who held counsel, people who were able to sense danger from miles and miles away, people who are able to find resources, right? But the high sensation seeking trait is also just as valuable. In fact, it's called people call it the wanderlust gene, right? So if it wasn't for the high sensation seeking trait, I mean, we have this, so it's all on a continuum, right? But people who have these traits, it's like we have it in abundance, okay? But it's this curiosity. So thousands of years ago, when we ran out of food or we didn't have any mates to mate with, we would go out and we would seek. And it's this kind of yearning to explore. So could it be the reason why we are the successful human race that we are today? Another reason why I'm so passionate about working with these people is because so much now is written about the high sensory trait, and so little is written about the high sensation seeking trait with the high sensory intelligence. And we still have a lot to unpack when it comes to the high sensory world, right? It's kind of synonymous with sensitivity, and it's been shrouded in shame for thousands of years. And to remember that we are highly sensitive, right? It's not the fact that, as I said, it's not the fact that the high sensation seeking trait in any way dilutes the high sensitivity at all. It's these are two very individual systems going on inside of us. But yet so little is written about the high sensation seeking trait in relationship to high sensitivity. And yet there's 477 million of us on the planet, and nobody is speaking their language, our language. And people with both these traits, we are 50% more likely to have adverse childhood experiences and suffering from complex PTSD. So, in other words, that means that a lot of these people are walking around checked out of their bodies, disassociated, feeling chronically unsafe, thinking or feeling like they've got some kind of bipolar, and no one is speaking their language, and yet they are some of the most gifted people on the planet, and we need them. And I'm so committed to helping people with both these traits, because I have both these traits. I understand how torturous it can feel when you don't work at the shadow level and with embodiment practices. And if the planet needs us, I mean, it's for me, it's like, you know, not only are we're the leaders in the tribes of who hold council and who people come to us because we're the wise leaders, right? It's also like we have the wanderlust gene, so we have the ability to take risks. We have both. It's a wealth of gifts, and I'm so determined to create a space and hold this light for people to really come in and align with their truth, so that they can make the impact that they were born to make for themselves primarily, and for the planet secondary.